What's up, Grow Fam? I'm Kamari Hardy, and I'm here with a special guest, Mr. Carvell Moore.
Hello, everyone.
So, Mr. Carvell, I've heard great things about you. My mom raved about you and your family. And what I've heard, too, across the streets is you're the cool principal. So,
I don't know about all that.
You don't know about all that? So, we always start off, with the podcast on, like, who you are, where you from. So can you give us a little bit of your background information?
Yeah. Well, I'm Carvell Moore, born and raised Fairfield, Alabama. You guys probably never heard of this hospital. Lloyd Nolan is no longer there. Just family. Was basically born and raised in Fairfield, right up on 60th Street, just like a family street. Grandmother stayed right down the street. I have 4 brothers. My mom had all boys, and it was like all her boys had all girls. So, my journey into education was a little bit unorthodox. It wasn't something that I thought I was gonna, get into.
Okay.
I got into education to be a coach. I played basketball. Got a basketball scholarship to Lawson State. Played there for 2 years, and when I transitioned to Miles, it was kind of like, okay, what are you gonna really do? I thought about it. My older brother, he was in early childhood education. I have 2 aunties that were teachers, both of them retired teachers. My uncle, he was a coach at Winona High School, so that was kind of the plan to just go towards coaching. But, I really wanted to work with the younger kids. I felt like, working with the older kids, some of their habits were already there, but I wanted to, kind of help with the foundation. Where the early childhood education started. So that's what made me go into elementary education.
Okay.
So when I came out of Miles in 2000, me and my wife got married in 2000. So, it's kind of funny. I got married August 12th. So that was like the season where all the hires was going on. So, we went on our honeymoon and I missed out on a lot of jobs. So I really couldn't, get into an elementary school. So the first job that I received was at Green Acres Middle School as a 6th grade science teacher. So that was, gave me the opportunity to coach. So I got into, coaching basketball, girls and boys, coached volleyball a little bit, got into the little football thing. But, once you start having kids, that extra time with coaching, it kind of weeded itself out. So, after being at Green Acres for 6 years, I said, let's give elementary education a try. So I transitioned over to Central Park Elementary School, where I was there for 6 years. I was there for 6 years as well. So at Central Park, I taught 4th, 5th, grade math and science. And that's really where I felt like I really, got my niche into really reaching the kids that I can really respond to. A principal, she was great. She was a great mentor to me. She really pushed me into getting into administration. She saw something in me. But as I was going, continuing my education process, I started really focusing on the, trying to get my young men motivated. Trying to get them, to kind of be excited about education, letting them see a different side in the classroom. Because a lot of times when they, got into 4th grade, I was the first male that they saw in that role. So my principal, we talked over the summer. She saw the effect that I was having. She was like, I want to try something next year. And I was like, what you want to do? She was like, I want you to have an all boys classroom. And I was like, all boys. I said, how you going to, work that out? I said, I think that'll be fun and different. And we tried it. And I mean, those 2 years I had those boys, man, we really moved them. My test scores really improved. We was able to really bond. We was able to get some mentoring groups together. And it was fun. And 1 year I was able to move with them to the 5th grade. So I had them 4th and 5th grade. And, that was a huge transition. I ran into one of my guys the other day, he's in his 30s and I was like, man, time flies. But, that's kind of how my journey started. And, once I got into administration, it just was a totally different level of responsibility, because you had to motivate teachers and students and parents. And it was a difficult transition, but I think it was good. My first administration job was at Rutledge Middle School. I was there for about 3 or 4 years. I was able to be athletic director while I was in Midfield City School, so I learned a lot with that. You really learn that, the parents care more about athletics than they do education.
Yeah.
So that was a really, really hard job, trying to manage both worlds. But, we was able to do it.
Okay.
We was able to do it.
So that was a lot. So one of my questions are, or let me get into my spiel. So I've been with a nonprofit called Growing Kings, and we basically follow kids from 4th grade all the way up until 12th grade.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of kids starting off my 3-year tenure there. In 4th grade, nice, best kid in the class, helping me out. 5th grade, same thing. When they got into middle school, it's a whole different person.
A whole different world.
Right. So my question to you is, how do you battle with that? Because I know at your school it's 3rd grade to 6th grade. So do you see any differences with your children?
Yes. It's funny that you say that, because now I'm with Tarrant City Schools. And when I transitioned over to Tarrant City Schools, I was at the high school. Their schools are kind of set up a little different. The elementary school is K through 2. Mm-hmm. The intermediate school is 3 through 6. And the high school is 7 through 12. So I was the 7, 8, 9th grade assistant principal. So coming from Rutledge Middle School over into that high school form, you can definitely see the difference in how the kids behave and how they act. Even socially, not even education wise, it's socially. It just feel like, in my experience is that the students care more about what the other students are doing versus what's really important.
Yeah.
And the barrier that I see is that when I transitioned from being the assistant principal at the high school, I became principal at the intermediate school. And to see how just the difference in how the teachers interact with the students, some of the practices that they do into the classroom, how that gap is missed once they go over to the high school, is much bigger because of the physical plan of the school, but how we train our teachers in the intermediate school and the elementary school realm, we try to have our teachers teach students in groups, and that transition to high school, those high school teachers really don't do that, and, it's funny that you say that, because it's definitely a different world. I just think that, they try to impress the friends and try to be a cool kid, versus the kids that's really responsible. And parents also have a gap in that, because, as your child get older, you kind of get your guard down and you kind of don't pay attention to certain things. And that's been the gap as well.
Yes, sir.
Because when we have PTO meetings at my school, I have about maybe 50 to 100 participating. But you can have that same meeting at the high school level. You may get 2 or 3 parents.
Yes, sir.
So
the reason I asked that, because my mom was heavily involved in my life throughout school. She's at all the meetings, tutoring, she basically put her life to the side for us. Right. So my thing is, how do you keep the parents involved and engaged into the children's life? Because we all know that, hey, that's really if you can answer that question, you'll be a rich guy. Okay.
I mean, you could try feeding the parents. You could try putting on different shows where their students, the kids are performing. You could try sporting events. I just don't know where that gap lies. I don't know if it's just the importance of being there is just not there, or, they may be working. I just don't know. But I do know that I have a huge Hispanic population at my school. And those parents, I mean, I'm really almost about 50-50. Those parents show up no matter what we're doing. It may be a language barrier. And of course we have translators there. It doesn't matter. Those parents are going to show up. But as far as on the African American side, I don't get that type of physical support. Now, if the kid come home and say they had a bad day, somebody bothered them, of course I get that phone call.
Quick.
But as far as coming to kind of see what's going on, the participation level is basically not there.
Okay. Gotcha. We'll dive right back into that. We're about to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a second. All right, girlfriend, we're back from commercial break and we'll dive right back into it. So, Mr. Moore, my question to you is, with anybody starting off becoming a teacher in their first year, what would your advice be to them?
My advice, I had to take a real deep breath, man. I'm just going to be honest with you because, coming out as a first year teacher, I'm just going to be honest with you. I was a horrible teacher. That's why, when I became an administrator, I always give grace to my first and second year teachers because you really don't know what's going on. I mean, of course, you take all the classes, but they don't teach you about mental health of kids. They don't teach you about the out of school factors that cause our students not to be successful. Mm-hmm. They don't teach you some of the traumas that our students have to come through. And some of those things, I feel like, that's what I would pass on, is to, for one, be patient, for two, know where your feet are. That means, you have to, reach the kids where they are. You can't just teach them without trying to grow the whole child, because that social emotional part is very important. It's more important than, I feel like the A's and B's and the ones and the twos, just knowing your students, because they're going to tell you everything. And when you hear those signs, with us being mandatory reporters, when you see something ain't really right, they keep saying the same thing. You be like, hold up, what happened last night? Now? And, like a few of my students this year, I was hearing about it on the news, and I come to school and, I hear them talking like, yeah, that was my house. I was like, hold up, your house got kicked in last night. I'm like, man, come here, bro. You good? You hungry? You need, I'm like, man, I know you was trouble. Yeah, Mr. Moore, it was 3 a.m. and they coming looking for my brother. He don't even stay with. I'm just like, wow, bro. And we trying to get them to, do phonics. Yeah. This guy done been up all night, trying to figure out, how I'm going to get my door, because the police done kicked it in. Some of those things is what these young educators need to understand, that, you have to take that at the forefront as well. Before you teach them, you have to really see where your feet are, see where those kids are.
Especially because it's funny you said that. When I first started with Growing King in my first year, I went through the same thing. I was like, I thought I could read all the books and do all these courses, and you get in there, it's just kids running everywhere. Right. And they're also telling you the personal information. But I think how you look at it, the way you have to look at it, you have to meet them where they are, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly.
But in addition to what I was asking you, when you try to, meet these students where they are, how can you try to progress their life, if you can, in your capacity?
You just have to keep talking to them. You have to filter into them. You have to, give them something new to think about and dream about. You have to tell them your story. And you also have to listen, because if they kind of gear off into the wrong direction, you talking about, man, what you want to do when you grow up, man? I want to go to the NBA. I'm like, man, that was my same dream, bro. That was my same dream. Yeah. Dude. I'm like, man, it's like 1,000. I was like, man, how many shots you put up a day? What do you mean? I said, man, it's a little boy, you same age, putting up 1,000 shots a day, bro. You ain't gonna make it. Let's try
straight up. Yeah.
What you like to do. You know what I'm saying? Other than that, just trying to expand their minds to see different things.
Yes, sir.
Like I have different people to come in. Like I had one of the Black veterinarians come in with some horses so they can see that type of lifestyle. Some of our kids never seen horses before.
Giving them options.
Giving them different options, having the dental people come, talk to them about dentistry, have the water company come, talk to them about water conservation, just putting different opportunities in them and trying to let them know that just hanging out with your friends, being the dope boy, being a rapper, being a streamer, that's good. But there are other options out there.
For sure.
Because that's what we had. In Fairfield, it's a small city, but it was so many examples of different ways that you can go. And, that's what I try to do for our kids, to try to talk to them and be at that level. Because my office is in the hallway. I'm never in my office. I'm out there on the ground, boots on the ground. If my teachers need me, I'm right there. And the students know I'm right there as well. So I like to, feel the heartbeat of them. But all kids want structure. All kids want, to be successful. But it's just giving them the different opportunities. It's just like coaching, putting them in the position where they can be successful. And when they step out of line, be punitive, but you also have to talk to them and explain to them the reasons why you're making that consequence that you're making. But just let them know that, there are other things out there that you can do.
Yeah, but
it starts with education. If you can't do this, bro, you definitely ain't gonna do that.
Yes, sir. Because I still remember people from school when I was in school, about our teachers that I trusted. And once I trusted them, they were telling me the right information. It made a world of a difference.
Right.
In your 20 years of education, what's one event that really shaped you in your career?
Several events kind of shaped. One I could just bring to mind, this is my 25th year. This is going to be my last year in education. I'm going to retire after this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Don't give it up?
Yes. Yeah, man. It's time to do something different.
Yes, sir.
I've been doing this since I've been 24.
Gotcha.
And it's been fun, but I gotta leave it for the young folks.
Yes, sir. Let them have it.
But it's been several things that kind of shape, but I just want to say one moment that really changed me is this was back in 2003. I was at Green Acres. I finished that year, finished my third year, and proration happened. They was letting teachers go, but they was hiring them back, but they was transferring them to schools where they needed, I guess, better teachers, or teachers that, they feel that was kind of successful. But I was like a second or third year teacher. But I got transferred to Kingston Elementary School. So I go from, Green Acres, kind of neighborhood school, West Side guy. I'm from Fairfield. They sent me way over to the east side, bro. Kingston.
Yeah.
School right in the middle of the project. The project playground and Kingston playground is pretty much the same playground. And the funny story about that is that I did my student teaching, like a semester of my student teaching at Kingston. So I was with the first grade class. So this was maybe, 99, and I say about 2000, whatever. Those kids that I received when I got to Kingston with the kids I had as student teacher. So started that new job, man. It was just like fish out of water, man. I'm talking about I got dudes trying to go to the bebop store, but I'm talking about folks from the neighborhood. They walking through the school smoking blacks, do-rags, white beaters. What's up, poo-poo? What's up? I'm just like, bro, what is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
And they know them. They don't know you. Yeah.
Bro, I'm just like, man, I can't believe. So I go to the principal. I say, hey, man, we got neighborhood folks walking through the hallways, man, smoking blacks, going to the bebop lady, man, like, we can't have this. He was like, man, I don't know how we could stop it. It's a neighborhood school. This day neighborhood. I'm just like, Mr. Williams.
I'm just trying to bring it home.
And, man, this guy really didn't, really have the luster and the,
passion.
The passion. Thank you. Great word. For, this particular job. And I'm just like, man, if this dude can do this job, man, I know I can do this job. So I was already kind of antsy because I had got let go, didn't really, know where I was going, but I ended up here. I said, man, I'm going to have to really get back in school and I'm going to be a principal, because if he can become a principal, I know I could become a principal. So that kind of changed my whole trajectory of where I set myself out in education, because I was fine just being right in the classroom, doing my thing. I mean, you know, just having a responsibility of just having these class. I taught science. I love science, hands-on. I was cool. Amstar was training me. So I was cool with that. But being uncomfortable with how he really wasn't, you know, paying attention to some things that could have been addressed just like that, about safety of kids, you know, really having data meetings, talking about instructional things. He wasn't that type of leader. And that kind of changed how I looked at leadership, and how I saw myself as being someone that could run a school, and to kind of get the culture of a school for students and teachers, so that we can, you know, come to work and make some changes. Okay. Because when I got to Tarrant Intermediate School, on the state report card, they was at a 56. You know, last year I was at a 75.
Okay.
So it took me 8 years. You know, it took one bite at a time on that big elephant. But, you know, I'm a strong believer. If you go in, love on those people, let your teachers you appreciate them, make sure they feel safe, love on those students, that test scores and achievement levels can happen. So I know I threw a lot at you, but that was the change of me, because I get asked a lot of questions, like, Mr. Moore, why you became a principal? I always go back to that Mr. Williams story. I ain't gonna say his first name, I'm gonna put it out, but I always go back to that Kingston story, man, because that guy really motivated me, man, to get out, you know, outside of my comfort zone, and to be, you know, a leader in education.
Yes, sir. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a second. All right, girlfriend, we're back from the commercial break. And this last segment, I want to ask you a couple of questions. What is one message you will leave with your students?
I'll just go with our school motto.
Okay.
If you know better, do better.
Okay.
You know, it's just plain and simple. You know, just be a man or woman of your word. I'm a strong person of character. Character means everything. Respect is due a dog. You know, when I see my students disrespecting each other, or I see my students, you know, disrespecting the teacher, you know, I always go back to them. I say, what if a dog was running up behind you, barking and chasing? I said, man, what you would do? She said, I'm going to turn around and run. I said, you respecting the dog. You could at least respect your teacher. So, you know, respect means everything to me. And I try to lead by example.
Okay.
You know, but if I had a motto, it would be, if you know better, do better.
Okay, gotcha. I kind of live by that, because you really don't know who's, you know, going through what. And a lot of times with problems, people don't really care.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But throughout, I'm going to go back in history and back to your history. When you started coaching, what made you, I know you said that you had children and you couldn't really coach anymore. What's another thing you dealt with coaching? Because I know I was a basketball player. My coaches tell me stories all the time. What's a big problem that you dealt with by coaching other kids?
It's the motivation and the passion of it. I mean, you can go over it with practice. I mean, I was the hands-on type coach. You know, I scrimmaged with them. I'm taking the sorriest folk, and I'm gonna be that fifth person, and I'm driving it on you. I'm playing defense. I ain't letting you get a shot off. But it was just, you know, motivating those girls, and it was to start over for you. You build up those girls' character, and then when the next season comes, it's just like everything just that you taught them the year before just went out the basket, you know, and you try to just let them know that you just can't come to practice and work out. You have to go home and, you know, make it a part of your daily diet. And that was something that I dealt with. I was real passionate. I was one of those, you know, I was young, you know, and now that I think about it, I would have did a lot of things differently, but that was, it was just that motivation thing, man, you know, and, you know, with my boys, it was just, you know, those bad habits, man, looking at TV messed them up. You know, they already think that they're pro. And, you know, those long nights, man, you know, looking at film, you know, it was a lot. And once I got back into grad school, I felt like I had to give coaching up.
Yes, sir. And in addition to that, I feel like with coaching or being, a player, you really don't know what goes into coaching. You just show up, go to practice,
Exactly.
Go about your day. And as I get older, my friends are into coaching. I kind of start seeing like, okay, you got to be there all night. Oh, you got to be at the games. You got to watch this. I never thought about it. With ending in this conversation, what's the biggest mindset trait you think you have that's made you who you are? Because at Growthology, we talk about journey, how we got where we are, how are we going to keep going. What's your biggest mindset trait that you have that you think helps you?
I think that my mind, if I had a mindset trait, I would say being flexible. Just loving people, being a servant. That's basically when you work into education, that's basically what you're doing. I mean, it's not glamorous. You're not getting paid the most. And a lot of times we get a lot of flack, but just being a servant and being flexible, because every day is different, just like, 2 days of the week I hate, is Mondays and Wednesdays, because, Mondays you got to train them all over again because the whole weekend was there.
Right, yeah.
And then Wednesdays is hump day. That's when they get a little antsy because they know that consistent breakfast, that consistent lunch, that feeling safe all the time, they know that's going to end in a couple days. So just making sure that, every Monday I just, be ready, because there's no telling what story I'm going to get. There's no telling what teacher's not going to be there. I may be in a class, or I may be with third graders, until my sub get there. So, just being flexible and being ready to serve.
Got you. And also with teachers, how do you keep them motivated? Because we all know teachers be having they late night weekends, kids, family situations. Right. How do you keep them motivated throughout the year?
Oh, man. We try to feed them, man. We try to do gift cards. We do teacher of the mom, but just basically letting them know that you love and appreciate them, and just letting them know that you're there for support. Teachers really don't want a whole lot of things. They don't really want to be, they don't want to be recognized all the time. They just want to be heard, and they just want, when something hit the fan, they want to know if you're there for them.
So I really want to appreciate you coming by. Like I said, my mom, my father, they vouch for you. And, whoever they vouch for, I don't even ask any questions. Right. Like my mom said, Mom, you said he was going to be fresh when he pulled up. And look at him. He's fresh.
I appreciate that.
So, yes, sir, I want to make sure I really appreciate you.
But sending love to your mom and dad, man. They're beautiful people, man. You have a wonderful family. My wife told me you was a sharp guy. I didn't think less because, just like I said, we know your parents. But, man, I appreciate the opportunity. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm praying for your success.
Yes, sir.
And keep doing what you're doing for these kids, man.
Yes, sir.
Needing the help, just let me know.
Yes, sir. And Grow Family, if you could like and share, subscribe our page, that would be great. And we'll see you next time.